1.2, functions and their properties. So as you can tell, there's a lot with this section as far as what we need to cover. Did I tell you guys in the video about the clown poem? Guess not. You would definitely remember. Bobo Bono Bosco.
I'm thinking of Bingo Bingo Bongo.
Yes, you are.
Dang it.
Okay, to start with, determine whether the formula determines y is a function of x. It's just yes or no questions. So 2, y equals x squared plus or minus 3. Is y a function of x? No, because of this plus or minus. For x equals 12 minus y. So in order for me to even figure out if it is or not, I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to have x minus 12 equals negative y. So y equals negative x plus 12. So is y a function of x? Yes, it's a line. It would pass the vertical line test. All the things. All right, we are going to determine if using the vertical line test to decide if the curve is a graph of a function or not. So number 6, we have the graph that looks like this. Is this a function? Why? Yep, so if I go through it, it intersects at more than one point, so it can't be a function. How about this one? Is this a function or not?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. As I go across, it intersects only one time. Those things don't overlap anywhere. So this is a function. All right. These problems say find the domain of the function algebraically, support graphically. I do not care about the graphically part. We're just doing the algebraically part. So 10 h of x equals 5 over x minus 3. So I want to find the domain. How do I know where the domain of a function is? It's the x values, but I need to find if there's any problems, right? And so what I want to do is I have x in the bottom, so I'm going to set the denominator equal to 0 and solve. So x minus 3 equals 0, so x equals 3. Why is that a problem? Why can x not be equal to 3?
That's right.
5 over 0.
Because I would get 5 over 0, which is what?
Undefined.
Undefined. So I'm looking for the problem areas, okay, which is where the denominator is equal to 0. And so from there, my domain is negative infinity to 3, not including union 3 to infinity. So what that tells me is I can have any number that you can think of, just not 3. Okay, when we get to finding vertical asymptotes, we'll find those the same way. 12 f of x equals 1 over x plus 5 over x minus 3. Do I have any problem areas with this one, or how do I find them?
X equals 0.
At x equals 0, we set the denominator equal to 0, so x equals 0, what else?
X equals 3.
Yep, x equals 3, that's the same one from up there, so I'm just going to rewrite it. So anything that makes the denominator 0 is going to be a problem. So when I do my domain for this one's going to have multiple pieces. Okay, it goes from negative infinity to 0, union 0 to 3, and all these are not including because it can't be equal to that, union 3 to infinity. So it's all of these pieces put together make up our domain. So anything from negative infinity to 0, between 0 and 3 to infinity, I can use. I just can't use 0 and 3 is what that tells me. F of x equals the square root of x to the 4th minus 16x squared. So this one's not a fraction. So we've said on the other ones that the problem areas are where the denominator's equal to 0. What numbers cause a problem under a radical? Negative numbers.
Because then you have
Okay.
to make it I.
Right, so it would make it an imaginary number, so I can't have that. So any idea what I might need to set the inside to be able to figure out?
Square root of x to the 4th over 16. Or no, square root of x to the
So if I need something to not be negative, what does that imply?
absolute value.
I can't do absolute value, but
X to the 4th.
in terms of solving something,
You move to the bottom.
can't have a negative, meaning it's what? It's an inequality. What are my inequalities, people?
Oh! Bigger than or greater than or equal to or
Greater than or equal to. Thank you. Okay? The stuff inside has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay? 0 is not a problem under a radical, but negative numbers are. So that's why it's got to be greater than or equal to. So I take x to the 4th minus 16x squared, and I set that greater than or equal to 0. Now I need to factor stuff out and solve. Okay, so now maybe you're seeing how this is coming full circle with a problem that you had on your test the other day. Talking about the banana or the problem on the test? So, what do both pieces have?
X squared.
X squared. I'm going to factor that out first. Leaves me with x squared minus 16. Greater than or equal to 0. What does this factor into?
X minus 4 squared.
It's a special type, just the other one. Huh?
X minus 4.
And
Plus 4.
x plus 4. So I have x squared times x minus 4 times x plus 4. Greater than or equal to 0. Now I split up each piece. So x squared is greater than or equal to 0. X minus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. X plus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. So I have x greater than or equal to 0. x greater than or equal to 4, x greater than or equal to negative 4. So I want to look when I plug these numbers back in and see what happens to make sure that I'm on the right track. If I plug in 0, I just get 0, so that's fine. What happens when I plug in x is greater than 4, plug in 5 to make sure it works? You may have to use your calculator. Somebody plug in 5 to this and make sure it's not something negative.
Is Christchurch the team we played Dice this last year? Or
I
was
think
it
so.
Christ Chapel?
Oh, Christ Chapel.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. No, I don't remember.
So far, they're like every other team we played. They're not very good. They're like I think like an Isle of Wight kind of game. But they have a decent nick block, so.
Somebody else can plug in like -5. Somebody else do -1 and somebody else do +1.
It's not.
Okay. So I know that part of it then is going to be from 4 to infinity. That's what you checked, right?
4? I put in 5.
That's what I mean, but you checked in something in this range is what I'm saying. Okay. Somebody check -1, somebody check +1, and somebody check -5. Because they're all greater than or equal to, but something can't possibly be right. That's why I want to check the intervals and make sure that they are working. Because obviously, if x is greater than or equal to all of those things, then it would just be greater than or equal to -4.
So we're playing this as the original equation that's under the square root.
Yes. -5 does not work.
You used to add the real number.
How do I know if it works?
If the stuff under the radical is positive or negative.
Yeah, this won't work.
So negative.
I'm checking something because I
I got
thought.
it.
Yeah,
Negative
like,
17.
it is a radical with the negative ones, it's imaginary.
I never got it right.
I think -1 works.
I get that -5 does work.
-1 comes out as positive, so does that mean it works?
No, -1 actually.
Well, no, you didn't put the radical on top, so it doesn't work.
What did I
Leave
do
that.
wrong?
All right, I think we're typing stuff in wrong because y'all are getting stuff different than what I have. So when you plug in, there you go, so where you can read it.
Why do you need
When I plug in -5, in parentheses, -5 raised to the 4th is 625 minus, so that answer minus, in parentheses, -5 squared is positive 600. So that tells me from -infinity to -4 works. I may have just written those too close together. -1. -1 to the 4th is 1 minus, what is it, 6, oh wait, hold please, I think I just typed that in wrong. 1 second, I did the last one wrong. Okay, the last one I did the wrong number, but that one works. 1 minus 16 times negative 1 squared is a negative number, so that interval doesn't work from negative 4 to 0. Then using positive 1, positive 1's going to be the exact same thing. So 0 is okay.
Wait, I get positive 17.
Then you're probably using parentheses incorrectly. So inside it would be, look, it'd be this. Negative 1 raised to the 4th minus 16 times negative 1 squared. That's how it should be typed. It gives you negative 15, which is a problem. So you have to check all the little intervals to make sure that the stuff actually works and doesn't cause an issue. Because the stuff from negative 4 to 0 and 0 to 4 doesn't work, we put 0 in the little curvy brackets to just say that it's a solution by itself.
I'm sorry, this is unrelated, but I just saw you have the digital SAT book. Do you do like any SAT prep for the students?
Not directly. They gave that to me so that I can see, because last year the feedback was that we struggled in basic algebra concepts, so they gave that to me to look at. But there's stuff on Khan Academy that does help with that.
That's because algebra was COVID year.
Huh?
That's because algebra was COVID year, so.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I was. Do you know like all the like shortcuts you can do on Desmos? No.
I never used it.
That's what helped me out in the last.
All right, I'm gonna backtrack so we do one more, kind of like what we just did here. Number 14, h of x equals the square root of 4 minus x squared over x minus 3. So what type of things are gonna cause a problem with this particular problem? Negative numbers, specifically on the top, and what else? And 0 on the bottom. So I'm going to have x minus 3 equals 0. And then I'm going to have 4 minus x squared is greater than or equal to 0. So I get that x equals 3. Then over here, x squared, or negative x squared, is greater than or equal to negative 4. Divide by a negative, I flip the sign, so x squared is less than or equal to 4. Now what happens?
X is less than or equal to 2. Or plus or minus 2.
Plus or minus, which means that one of them also has to have the inequality flipped. Right? Okay, so I have x is less than or equal to 2, or x is greater than or equal to negative 2. Now, when I have a problem like this where there's multiple constraints, as in I have a problem on the bottom and potentially a problem on the top, I go with the strictest thing. Okay? So this implies that x occurs where? If you were to write this as one inequality, how would you write it?
X is less than or equal to, x is greater than or equal to negative 2, but x is less than or equal to 2.
Yes, okay. So that implies that the x values have to be between there, because if I choose a number outside, what happens? Let's just say if I put in 3 in the top, what happens?
You get a negative number.
I get a negative number, so that tells me anything outside of there is going to be a problem. So in this case, this x equals 3 isn't going to matter because my constraint is stricter off of the top. So my domain for this one is going to be from negative 2 to 2. If it was -4 to 4 instead, then I would have to do -4 to 3, union 3 to 4. If it was written differently. Any questions about those ones? All right, next thing is determining if the function has a point of discontinuity at x equals 0. If there is, tell if it's removable or non-removable. So 22 h of x equals x cubed plus x over x. All right, so for continuity, I can't read that. A function is continuous at a point, so in our case, x equals 0 if the function does not come apart at that point, okay? Meaning there's no, like, problem areas at that specific point. So, looking at this problem that we have here, what is going to cause a problem for this one? If what? Kind of thinking like domain.
0 in the bottom.
If 0 is on the bottom, which would imply that what? X equals 0, so it's undefined. So this is discontinuous at x equals 0. Let's see, 24 g of x equals x over x minus 2. Are there any problem areas on this one?
Over the top is 0.
I don't care about the top being 0.
It's 2.
Yep, at x equals 2, that would be a problem, but they specifically wanted to know about at x equals 0. So this is continuous at x equals 0. It's not asking us for this, but there would be a point of discontinuity at x equals 2. You don't really need to know that until you get to calculus, but it's just more of a informational piece there for you. But for the sake of this problem, they just want to know at x equals 0, what is it? And so this one is continuous at x equals 0. All right, I skipped over something we need to go back to really fast, and that is range, which is what values?
X and Y. No, Y.
Range is just y. So this tends to be something that people struggle with the most, so I'm going to try to show you like an easy way to do it. But finding the range of the function, number 18, I've got g of x equals 5 plus the square root of 4 minus x. So, do we know what a square root function typically looks like? I guess nobody's done 1.3 yet. That's okay. All right, get out your calculators. We're going to graph these
Can I get some water real quick?
quickly. All right, yesterday we had our stat plots turned on for what we were doing. So first and foremost, we need to go turn that off. So hit second y equals, which should bring up your stat plot. You're going to see one of them is listed as on. Arrow down to option 4. It says plots off. Hit enter and then hit enter again. And it has turned them all off, so you don't have to worry about it. Otherwise, it's going to throw your graph and do something weird. Now, go to y equals, and you're going to type this in. 5 plus the square root of 4 minus x. It should look like that. Does everybody have that? All right, so yesterday we had changed our graph to zoom stat. We need it in zoom standard now, so hit zoom, and then option 6 is standard. And what do you notice about that graph? It stops. Okay, so I want to see approximately where it stops. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. But let's say I can't tell for sure. Hit trace. And you can arrow over all the way to the end of your graph. I went too far. What number do you see for your y value?
5.
Yeah, it's 5 with a little bit of change left over, but 5. So our range goes from 5 to infinity, because that's the y values that this function takes on. This just keeps on going to infinity up.
What do you do after you plug it in? Like I put the thing in. What do you do after?
Zoom
that?
6, which is zoom standard.
So wait, you plug it into y equals? Okay.
All right, the next one, go ahead and write it down. Number 20, g of x equals 3 plus x squared over 4 minus x squared. Leave it down here so we can read it. Now, when you go back to y equals, I'm going to clear what was there. To type in a fraction, obviously you can put things in parentheses and do the little divided sign, but if you want to have it actually in as a fraction, hit the alpha button. So for me it's green, I think for most people it's green, but hit alpha and then y1, and you're going to see the first option says n over d. You're going to hit that, and then type in on the top 3 plus x squared, on the bottom 4 minus x squared, like that. I know it's hard to see on mine, but you type all that in and then hit zoom 6 again. If you're already in zoom 6, you don't really have to do that. You can just hit the graph button, but I just do it out of habit. What'd you say?
Graph.
Wait, how do you get the fraction?
Hit alpha and then y equals, and then it'll have the first option is n over d. You just have to hit enter.
Wait. 6.
Do you have a TI-84?
Okay, 83.
Then it probably won't do it. You'll probably just have to put parentheses around it. So I would do like this. I would put parentheses 3 plus x squared divided by 4 minus x squared.
I got syntax error.
How did you type it in?
Like that. Wait, so I pressed zoom and I pressed 6, right?
Yeah. Did yours work, Tristan?
Yeah. I don't know.
random line. I had somebody last year that did the same thing like that. I don't know. It's weird.
But so like on the final APP calc exam, you won't even have like calculators. Like, will they just?
You have one for part of it.
Yeah. But like, are we allowed our own?
Oh, I guess it's just showing.
There's also desk
From
right?
the form.
Or is it not?
I don't know. I assume so, but I don't know.
Mine doesn't do that. My lines are like
Mine's
connected.
upside down. How did that happen, Tori?
Maybe because it's a TI-83.
Yo, what is yours?
Does yours have a random line? Hers is the same thing.
Mine is connected.
Yeah, I don't
Did
know.
you forget to
It's not
erase?
supposed
Bella. I don't think Bella's is right.
Mine, there's like millions
Did
of
you put
lines.
minus excellent on the top?
What is
Bella, I wanna see yours.
calculators?
No.
Can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing happens. I think they might be broken.
I can see your watch.
Oh. How much time do I don't know the like chapels.
Can you change the
Like
background?
it out at 12.
Yours like colored it in.
We got.
But it's
check
still
it
not
out.
right.
Oh, did you do
Well,
greater
it
than or
looks
equal
right.
to?
It's
With
just
the
not.
calculator?
Maybe she clicked greater than or
Where'd you have to
equal
put that
to.
on?
What?
The fountains, like
I had to put it on.
Why would
I mean, did I put it in right? I don't know why.
So we got, of course, off. Then we got a bridge. Random railing.
I think yours look cool.
Flowers.
It's
Yeah.
kind
Oh.
of interesting.
Water fountain.
You have it
favorite.
shaded.
Ah.
What does that mean?
Water
That
fountain.
it has to look like a line.
Because it looks
So
stupid.
if you hit enter.
If you compare
I cannot wait to have my pizza.
that water source.
There we go.
Oh,
Okay.
for real. Wait, that would actually be really
Oh,
cool.
looks normal.
There we go.
Thank you.
Wait, that would actually.
All right, did y'all get it over there?
Yes. Yeah.
Fancy
It's like a little.
Yours just has a random line,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I'll just have
Hers did the same thing. I said somebody's last year did the same thing. I don't really know. It just happens.
This is from my
All right, so I'm looking for the range. So I need to try to figure out what y values this takes on. So I'm gonna need to use trace again. It's starting me here at x equals 0, y is 0.75. So what do you notice at that point? It goes where?
down.
Up.
Up.
So part of it is going to be 0.75 included to infinity. Now I need to see what's happening down here, so I'm going to arrow down and see if I can get it to jump. Can I get it to jump? What is happening?
It jumps. That's what
Oh, there we go. Okay, so then both sides of these are the same. It's just one's going to the right and one's going to the left, so I just need to follow this up. What do you notice those y values are getting closer and closer to?
The x-axis.
6.
Specifically what number?
5.7. Or negative.
The y number.
Negative 5.7.
Negative 1.
I think my calculator is right.
So, I need to move this over.
Not honest reaction.
This goes from negative infinity to negative 1, but there's an asymptote there, so you don't know what that means. But,
There's no way.
You said we don't know what that means?
well, I mean, you might, but I'm just saying, like, you may not have recognized that if I hadn't said
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
Don't stress out too much about range. Riley, was there even a question on range on the AP exam last year?
I don't think so.
I do like the
that on
blue.
my mind though.
I just want you to recognize it's the y values and be able to roughly look at a graph and figure out approximately what it is. Don't stress out too much over range.
Are you
I want to
serious?
make my own graph.
You're lying.
All right, we have about 5 problems or so that we need to do tomorrow, give or take a couple. So we'll finish that. Probably take us about 10 minutes or so, and then you'll have the entire rest of the time to work on this stuff.
I have a question.
You don't need 1.3 notes till Monday. Yes.
What's the high school in your students got? A 5?
The 5's club.
Has someone ever gotten a 5?